Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Reconstructing History podcast. Welcome back, I should say. It's a beautiful spring day. Well, spring.
It's cold.
It's cold.
But it's really, really sunny. There's not a cloud in the sky.
It's gorgeous. No, it's very little wind, so there's no wind chill, so you can actually forgive it for looking like April. But yeah, it's end of February at time of filming. Carnival has just begun.
Yes, Carnival
here
started
in Brabant.
last weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And which means driving around, you can see people dressed up in the most ridiculous costumes.
A lot of people in strangely plaid suits.
Yes.
And none of their stripes match, which really pisses me off.
It is a thing.
I mean, they go and have these suits custom made, and their frickin' tailors don't know how to match stripes. Shame on you, tailors. Shame on you, Carnival tailors.
Waggle, waggle, waggle. This
Match
is me
your stripes.
waggling my finger.
It's important.
So
It makes you look weird. If you have your stripes not matched, particularly on the back of your pants, if your stripes aren't matched, your ass looks funny.
That's true. It's true. And yeah.
Don't buy.
And nobody
those
wants
things.
a funny looking ass.
No.
No.
I mean, funny haha. Not funny weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's new? What do we have going on? We're continuing work on bringing out new patterns.
So many new patterns. So many pattern revisions.
Yeah.
So many made-to-measure orders. I'm working my ass off. My ass is going to look weird because it's going to not be there.
Or half there.
Or half there.
Yeah.
Like left. I'll lose the left half.
Oh, that's weird.
Not the right. I know. It's weird.
Just only your right buttock.
It's weird. What?
I'm trying to get a mental picture of that, and it's escaping me.
Because it's weird.
So yeah, we're continuing work on that. We are continuing work on made to measure. Basically everything on last week's podcast is ongoing.
We're still doing that.
Yeah.
400 patterns, you know.
It's going to be the same lead for the news for a long time.
At some points, my dog is going to whine.
Yep.
He's working up to bitching
Yeah.
level. So you'll hear some whining. Know that we're not torturing him. He's sitting over there on his bed, perfectly happy, except that he's angry that we're talking to you and not to him.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about it for the news, I think.
Yeah. I think there's not much new. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Still. Continuing.
We'll let you know when we're done.
Until I'm dead.
Until we're all dead.
My God.
So, what do we have on our agenda to talk about today? Shall we do Cass's cabbage first?
We can do Cass's cabbage.
Let's do Cass's cabbage. Because Cass's cabbage this week is...
Why is 5/8 inch the standard seam allowance? That's
why is that, Cass?
1.6 centimeters in centimeters. And I've heard a lot of people, like people who sew, know about 5/8 inch. It's on the sew plate on your sewing machine. There's a bunch of marks on the sew plate, and the big one is 5/8 inch. It doesn't matter if your sewing machine is American or European or Japanese. That big line is 5/8 inch because it's become the standard.
Okay.
And people who learn tailoring or haute couture types of sewing, one of the first things they say is, that's amateur seam allowance. You don't need that big a seam allowance. And that's absolutely true. You don't need that big a seam allowance. But the reason that seam allowance exists is there's a really good reason for it. In standard sizing, the sizes go up in 2-inch increments. So the size that represents a 34-inch bust is one size, and then the next size up represents a 36-inch bust.
Okay.
And there's some variation in there, of course, but the standard is sizes tend to go up in 2-inch increments. So the simplest garment you could ever have is one that has a front and a back, and that's it. It's two pieces. So you have a front and a back, and you sew them together on the seams and the sides, on the shoulders and the sides. And if you want to make that from the 34-inch bust to the 36-inch bust, you have to add 2 inches to it.
Right.
And 2 inches, one on the left, one on the right on the front, and one on the left, one on the right on the back, is 4 places for adjustment.
Right.
So 2 inches divided by 4 places
Is a half
inch
inch
each. Now, what's 5/8? 5/8 is 1/8 more than a half inch.
Right.
So basically, when you do a 5/8 inch seam allowance.
Okay, we're going to pause right here because the dog is jumping.
Because it's
So, sorry for the abrupt pause thing. You know.
yeah, elderly dogs.
Yeah.
Elderly dogs. They demand.
He's been laying in that same spot for like 6 straight hours, and you know, just as we sit down to record, he's got to go.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But that's his special trick.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So 5/8 inch seam allowance. So if you have the simplest garment, you go up a half inch on each seam.
For every 2 inch.
For every 2 inch increment.
Right.
So in other words, if you cut your garment with a 5/8 inch seam allowance, that allows you to then remake the garment in a larger size without overly stressing the seams, because you'll still have 1/8 of an inch.
Right.
And 1/8 of an inch, if you've done a good seam, 1/8 of an inch is a decent amount.
Right.
The people who learn haute couture techniques know that, you know, your seams shouldn't be bigger than like 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch.
Right, but they're not making anything that's going to be worn more than like twice, so it's not important that it's let out. Right?
They're making something that's very specific to the person
Right.
who's wearing it. So you don't need to reuse it, and you
Right.
don't need to let it out. And so that's the reason there are 5/8 inch seam allowances, and that's the reason that became standard, because as the 2 inch increment for sizes became standard, the 5/8 inch increment in the seams. There's we have some patterns from the 20s,
Right.
which is, over-the-counter sewing patterns, printed on tissue. They date to the 1870s or 80s, and I have one or two that are that old. But in the 1920s was when they really started standardizing.
Yes, and it really took off.
Yeah.
And they were in magazines as well as over-the-counter patterns.
But the patterns that were actually printed on tissue with lines and everything.
Right.
One of the companies, and I don't know if it was Butterick or Simplicity or one of the others that's no longer known.
Right.
But I know that I have patterns that make this big deal. I think it was Butterick, because they had a pattern. They called them the delineator pattern, and they made this big deal about these are the let-out seams.
Right.
And so that's not the seams that were on the front of the body or the seams that are on the back of the body, but the seams that are right down the side were let-out seams. And that was meant for you to be able to adjust if you gained weight or lost weight.
Right.
Those were the seams that you would adjust. And, you know,
it's a clever piece of engineering to engineer that adjustment in the seam and still have the garment look like it's intended.
Well, it is, and not everything works.
Right.
With a multi-size pattern or even a standard size pattern.
Right.
Because different bodies are shaped different ways, and we've been kind of deluded into this idea by standard sizing in patterns and also in clothing in stores. We're deluded into this idea that there is such a thing as a standard. There's not a standard, there's an average.
Right.
And the average is off. I think I made a video, and I'll link it in a card, about standard sizing and how odd it is and why it's different and what it means and where it came from and why this number seems to have no relationship to any. Why a size 8? What does 8 mean? What that kind of stuff. I did a video, so
that's cool.
I'll link that. So you guys can watch it.
That's why 5/8.
That's why 5/8.
Okay.
And which gets me into another thing that I wanted to talk about. I'm always going on about how tailoring is going to save the world, and I like to preach about this. So
Is it because capes aren't tailored?
No, capes are rarely tailored.
But hell, those skin-tight suits. There's some serious tailoring going on there.
And there are some very famous men with very famously large arms who need to fire their tailors.
Oh yeah, there are some.
Oh my God.
I'm
Oh
looking
my
at
God.
you, Mr. Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Dwayne, fire your tailor.
Buddy.
You have big, huge arms. There should not be a line of wrinkles around your sleeve because your sleeve is too tight. That means your sleeve is too tight. Your tailor did not do his or her job.
I just threw that name out there. It's
No, every time I see him, he's been on Graham Norton's show quite a number of times in a beautiful suit, and there's always these.
And you know that suit cost.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not just him. It's him and like all of the guys.
Everybody famous who's also, you know, muscled.
Large. Yeah. Who has arms.
Oh, yeah. When I was stuck in the States last year, there was football commentators, like ESPN and various. You know,
Wrinkles right here.
I mean, these guys.
Watch the videos.
Like Howie
Wrinkles
Long,
right here.
even guys who've been out of the gym. Well, maybe they still hit the gym. I don't know. But guys who are very clearly these very fit, very muscular, athletic guys. Their suits fit like crap.
If you're buying a suit off the rack, and guys that big can't find their size off the rack, but if you are having your suits custom made, if they are bespoke suits, fire your tailor, find another one, because that is a crap tailor. That is someone who has decided to make a huge suit and just leave it alone. You have a different shaped arm than a person who doesn't have those muscles. You don't just have a bigger arm, you have a different shaped arm. And that needs to be taken into consideration. And that is why tailoring is important. And tailors are like sculptors.
Yeah.
A tailor can make a hunchback look like a supermodel. A tailor makes the clothing fit your body and doesn't stand there and go, oh, well, we're going to have to take that out because you aren't the size the suit comes in. That is not what you pay someone for. You do not pay someone for that sass. That sass is, I want to sell you something cheap and charge you too much for it. If someone sasses you like that, walk out the door, go down the street, go to the other tailor.
If you're lucky enough to have another tailor. These days, though, the
tailoring, I mean,
tailoring is taking off again.
In the last 20 years, there's been like this resurgence of bespoke tailoring and resurgence of people going to tailoring school and taking it up as a
I
profession.
remember when it started, when it was remarkable, like 15 years ago, something like that. We started seeing articles, because we were lamenting the guy I used to go to when we lived in Easton was, you know, so old he farted dust. But the kind of guy who could just lay fabric over your shoulder, have his little chalk, tape, chalk, pencil, come back in a week. And like in a perfectly fitted anyway, but
the point of this isn't to spend a lot of money on a suit.
No.
The point of this isn't to spend a lot of money on anything.
Right.
The point of this is to put your money somewhere where you're getting value.
Put it into quality.
If you go and buy clothing and it lasts you 6 months and then you throw it away or even donate it to a charity, who, if you've worn it, it's going to get thrown away because they're not going to resell something.
Best case scenario, it's going to go into a container and get shipped to a developing country where someone who can barely afford anything will have something to wear.
And even
best case scenario.
Even then, I mean, watch the YouTube videos. There are pictures of landfills in like Ghana where the entire landfill is clothing, and that's where your donated clothing goes to. It doesn't help anybody. It just goes to a landfill in another country.
It doesn't get recycled.
No.
If you're lucky, you take it to Goodwill, it'll get put on a hanger and resold. But
clothing was never meant to last 6 months. Clothing should last years, if not decades. And this is not something just for rich people. Clothing is something you should invest in, and that's why it has seams. Like a properly made pair of trousers, and you'll know this if you own any of our trouser patterns, a properly made pair of trousers doesn't have a 5/8 inch seam down the back. It starts with a 5/8 inch seam all the way at the bottom, and by the time it gets to the belt, it's like 3 inches, 3 inches on either side of the seam. And do you know what that's for? That's for if you gain weight, you can let the trousers out. Because when you let trousers out, you don't just expand. If you expand the waistband and don't expand the rest of the trouser,
It won't work.
No. And you see, like, I remember when I was doing community theater and we had the guy who was playing opposite me, really big guy.
Yeah.
And they went to find him a suit and they couldn't find him a suit that fit. So the costume mistress basically ripped out the back seam and put a V shape in there.
Yeah.
Because that's the shape. But that's the shape that a custom tailor or, a decent tailor will put in the seam allowances. So if you do get larger, and because you're buying a suit for 20, 30 years, that you can let the pants out. You can also take them in.
The suits we bought 20 years ago in Easton from Hello London Shop, I hope you're still there.
They're upstairs.
Those suits are upstairs, but when I had to have the trousers let out about 5 years ago.
There was room to let the trousers out.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
And this is why I say tailoring is going to save the world, because we're all concerned about the environment, and we're all concerned about things getting thrown on landfills. And I'm not just talking about men's suits, although that seems to be what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about anything that if you have it made by someone whose profession it is to custom make things, you don't pay them hundreds of dollars for something that you're going to throw away in 6 months.
No.
You pay them hundreds of dollars for something that not only can you continue to wear if you gain weight, but that can be remade. Skirts that can be cut shorter.
The classic example of
run out of examples.
No, the classic example from the Second World War of the men's suit being made into the women's business suit.
Because they didn't have any fabric to make new suits. So
right. And so many women were going into the workplace, they needed workplace attire.
Yeah.
So all these plans came out, would take this old suit, an old man's suit, and turn it into a woman's suit.
I actually have a sewing book from the World War II era that talks about, here's how you cut a woman's suit out of a man's suit, because if the man's suit is worn out, these are the areas that are worn out. So this is where you position, this is where you cut, so you can cut around.
Yeah, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But and it's not even custom really. If you just buy quality, and I think that's a moving target. Yeah. It's subjective. But
it's not really subjective.
Well, you're right. It's not really subjective.
Let me give you an example.
It needn't have anything to do with price.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Okay, so we went to a shop. We got I was working for a big corporation back when I first started RH, but I hadn't gone full time yet. It was like
Aughties.
Yeah,
early
2004 or something. And I wanted to dress well for work.
Right.
So we took the tax refund and I went shopping. And I went to the King of Prussia Mall, and there was a Burberry store there. And I went to the Burberry store, and I really went to the Burberry store because I wanted a scarf. Yeah. And I just wanted to pay the ridiculous amount for a cashmere scarf and just have a scarf and then go somewhere else and shop. But I walked in the store, and the young woman looked at me and she said, "Size 14?" And I said, "I have no idea." I
remember it well.
I haven't been in a shop in so long. I don't know. I haven't bought in a shop. I don't know what size I am. And she's like, "Well, let me get you a 14. I think we might have to take the waist in, but let me get you a 14." And she went, and she came into the dressing room with me. And I put these pants on.
I wasn't allowed in the dressing room.
No, she went into the dressing room with me, and we put the trousers on, and they were really long. And I mean, I'm 5'8", which is like 1.72 meters. And so I'm not short.
By any stretch, yeah.
But these were like flooding all over the floor.
They also still had the zigzaggy edge on, as I recall, didn't they?
No, they didn't. They had cuffs.
Did they?
Yeah.
I thought they hadn't been finished yet.
No, you're thinking about a different pair of trousers.
Okay.
It's not the first time. It's not the only time this has happened, but this is the first time it happens. So I went into the dressing room, and there were cuffs, but the cuffs were, like 3 inches lower than my toes. And I was like, "Oh my God, who are these, made for giraffes or something?" And she was like, "Oh no, we'll fix that." And so she pins up the bottoms, and she pins up everything, and she put some chalk marks on it. And then she put some chalk marks in the middle of my back. And she said, "I only do hems. our tailor only comes in on Thursdays, and it was like a
Tuesday morning, something
Tuesday
like
morning,
that.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Because we learned long ago, ladies and gentlemen, never
Don't
go
go
anywhere
on a
near a mall on
Saturday.
a weekend.
No. So she said, our tailor only comes in on Thursdays, and he's going to have to do this because this is more complicated than I can do. She said, normally I'll send you to the food court in an hour, I'll have your hems done, but this is more than a hem. So we're going to FedEx this to you, and you'll get it on Friday because he works Thursday. You'll get it on Friday, and I was standing there going, what is happening to me?
That slightly concussed look.
Because I was buying a scarf, and but they were beautiful. I mean, the trousers were beautiful, and I'm going to tell you how much they cost. I'm going to tell you how much they cost because it's important for the story. They cost $350, and this was years ago.
Yeah.
$350. They were 100% wool.
Yep.
And beautiful wool. Oh my God, you would wear underwear made of this wool. It was so soft and lovely. I kept rubbing my face on it. I mean, the woman thought it was crazy. And beautiful, beautiful wool. And they were half lined, so they weren't fully lined. They were just lined to the knees. Mm-hmm. So, but look, I still have them. They're upstairs. I'm too fat.
That's the important point. Yeah. I wish you hadn't gone there yet. Yeah. But they cost that much money. Mm-hmm. They were tailored to you.
Yes.
Right.
They're 18 years old.
They're 18 years old. If you took them to
a tailor,
if you took them to Ilsa, she would let them out for you.
She could let them out enough that they would fit.
Yes.
And
you wouldn't have the fabric wouldn't have deteriorated.
No, and I tell you the truth, between 2004 and 2012, when we moved to the Caribbean, and I kind of put all my wool stuff in storage. So 2004 to 2012, that's 8 years. I wore them
regularly.
I wore them at least once a week. And, I didn't tiptoe around and try not to get them dirty or anything. So, here's a pair of trousers that I wore for 8 years, and they're still in excellent condition. And the only reason I'm not wearing them right now is because I'm fat. And,
it's a thing.
It's, and I don't want to have them altered because I don't want to be fat anymore. So when I take them to Ilsa to have them altered, it'll be because, I'm too thin to wear them.
Yes.
Or whatever. But, that's the point. The point is that I bought these trousers and I paid a lot of money for these trousers. But I absolutely got $350 worth out of them.
Whereas in the same time, you could go to one of the big box stores that end in Mart. I was going to say Kmart, but they don't. I think there's 3 Kmart stores left in the continental United States now.
I don't know.
Anyway, you go to one of the big box stores and you get a pair of slacks like that. I say slacks because I'm from central Pennsylvania and women don't wear trousers. They wear slacks. Ask my mom. You could pay $50 for a pair of women's trousers like that, but you'd have bought. They wear out in a year if you wear them that regularly. They'll pill. The fabric will start to disintegrate. You'll
rip the seams.
You'll rip the seams. They won't be half lined. They won't be fully lined. They won't be half lined. They won't be any lined. You'll be lucky.
Zipper will break.
You'll be lucky to get pockets. So yeah, things will break. They may need but so you'll.
It's not worth fixing $50 pair of pants.
So at the end of 20 years,
you've
now spent $1,000 on slacks. Where and that to me is false economy.
Well, that to everyone is false economy. That is false economy.
I mean, yes, okay, you're not spending $350 can be scary.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a pair of trousers, but you have to think about it. I mean, you have to have the $350 that you can pay spent on trousers. But the other thing about it, the thing that I learned was before that, I would buy, cotton trousers or something, cotton polyester, whatever. And they would break and I would have to have, 3 or 5 pairs of them because they would have to go in the washer all the time. And with the good wool trousers, I can't take them to the dry cleaning. No, I never dry cleaned those.
Yep.
I didn't take them to the dry cleaner once.
Spot cleaned them.
Spot cleaned them if they got anything on them.
Hey, look, and we have a video for that.
Yeah, and we have a video for that we will put in the card. Sprayed them with vodka.
Yep.
You know, you can spray them with Febreze.
Which is the same thing as dry cleaning.
Yeah. I mean, I have had more things, actually not my things, because I don't take my things to a dry cleaner. I have had more of your things destroyed by a dry cleaner. Because dry cleaners these days, and if you're a dry cleaner who doesn't do this, tell me in the comments.
So we can tell everyone to go to you.
So we can tell everyone to go to you. Because every single dry cleaner I have ever used, not ever used, every single dry cleaner I have used in the last 20 years has either broken all the buttons off of your suspender trousers, screwed up the collars on your shirts,
railroad track the creases in my trousers.
What most dry cleaners, what the dry cleaner down the street from you doesn't do dry cleaning. They take your stuff in and then they send it off to some big plant, and that big plant doesn't care.
Nope.
That big plant sticks things into a machine and they don't care that the rollers of the machine break off the buttons. This dry cleaner that broke every single button on his suspender trousers actually looked us in the face and said, "You brought them in with no buttons on."
Yeah. Needless to say, we didn't go to that dry cleaner again.
We had a little chat.
Yeah.
And then he gave us all our money back.
Yep.
And I think he also gave me money to buy new buttons.
I think so.
Because I had a chat.
But it wants the same kind of consolidation in a lot of different businesses. Dry cleaning, Dunkin' Donuts. Used to be every Dunkin' Donuts store had its own bakery in the back.
Oh, the smell.
But in the last 15 years,
sucks. Now it sucks.
every big...
No, they used to have to make the donuts. You're getting up 3 o'clock in the morning, got to make the donuts. And now nobody makes the donuts.
I think the one in Lewistown still has a bakery in the back because it's so remote from every other Dunkin' Donuts location that by the time they got actual donuts from the big local central donut factory. Because I remember, Roy and I, hi Roy, we'd be sitting there at 2:30 in the morning after our radio shifts, smoking cigarettes and putting them out in those little pressed tinfoil. No, in the ash. Those little. Guess how old
back when you could smoke in a Dunkin' Donuts and they wouldn't call the cops.
Yeah.
They called the cops because you sang.
Yeah, they did that. Well, they never called the cops. Robin used to.
Beautiful.
Robin used to actually just sit on the counter and just be like, huh. Anyway, because we'd sing, Dennis and Roy and I, we would sing.
3-part harmony.
Yeah, because it's 3-part harmony by singers who also worked the late shift at the local small market radio station.
And smoked way too many cigarettes.
I don't think Dennis never did smoke.
No?
No, Dennis never did smoke. Bless you, Dennis.
That's why he sang soprano?
No. He is a tenor.
Yeah.
But I am now a baritone.
Yeah, you used to be a tenor, and no longer.
No. But anyway, the point is, Lester would be in the back making the donuts while we were in the front smoking ciggies and drinking coffee.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's.
But that doesn't happen anymore, and the same in dry cleaning.
Yeah, and so if you have, I mean, it used to be you would go to the dry cleaner and say, "I have this problem. Would you take care of it?"
Yeah.
And they would, and now you can say that to them, and then they just stuff your stuff with a bunch of other stuff and hand it to some place that just puts it through a machine, and doesn't even look at it.
Yep.
And I've seen beautiful colorful shirts drained of all their color because they didn't pay attention.
So the point is, you don't need to dry clean.
You don't need to dry clean.
If you have a good dry cleaner, good. Keep using that dry cleaner. Spread the business around.
But you don't have to. I'm going to tell you something my mama taught me way back in the day. My mom worked in a garment factory her entire life from 16 years old until they closed her garment factory. I think she was 77 when they said, "No, you can't come here anymore. There is no factory here anymore."
Why is there a padlock on the door?
The place is condemned. Do not come back here anymore. So,
but look at that place. It should have been condemned a long time before it closed.
Oh my God, just don't even.
Yeah.
I grew up in that factory. Like my comfort smells are machine oil and fabric dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so she would tell me, she said, those dry clean only labels that you see, she said, they're not dry clean only. There's almost no instance of dry clean only. What it's saying is we don't want to take responsibility for you washing this garment. Yep. And then a few years later, I started getting into making things out of silk. And the silk company I bought from sent out in the newsletter, paper newsletter. They would send a paper price list with a
Back
paper.
in the before times.
Back in the before times, paper newsletter with a paper price list. And
It was papyrus, right? Written on
yeah,
with
it was written
with
on
a reed quill and
it was
hieroglyphs.
written on sheepskin. But the article said, yes, you can wash silk. And then it went into this whole thing about how you could wash silk. And you don't have to take your silk blosses to the dry cleaner. You can hand wash them. You can do this. You can do that. And the reality is that those dry clean only labels, I mean, like back
It's cheaper to put a dry clean only label in a garment than it is to treat the fabric and you make the fabric so that you can actually wash it.
Yeah. And like back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, even the 50s,
Yeah.
you didn't take your stuff to the dry cleaner. You hand laundered your stuff. And I mean, I remember when I was a kid, when like in the early 70s, my parents' washing machine was one of those tub things with the rollers at the top. So you put it in the tub and you washed in the tub and then you ran it through the rollers and you did that. You didn't do that. You didn't do a load of laundry. You hand inspected everything as it went through. So, I mean, one of the great things about that is if you had a stain on something and you treated the stain, it didn't come out, well, then you don't put it through the rollers to squeeze the water out. You send it through again until you get the stain out. So, I mean, nobody has time to do anything. But it's really, you hand something off to a dry cleaner and they also aren't taking the time to take care of your clothes either. So you might as well, I mean, go on the internet. There are sites that say, if you have a stain of blood, do this. If you have a stain of red wine, do this. If you have a stain of what?
Where are you finding sites that tell you how blood stains? Should I be worried? Like the police?
Yes, be worried.
Oh.
But how to get this out of linen, how to get this out of silk, how to get this out of wool.
Did I ever tell you the story?
Oh my God.
Let me tell you the story. Many years ago, when I was working at the radio station, I had a red pen. Because the copy would come, because this is old school radio too, so everything's done live. So and once the newsman went home, because he would start at 5 a.m, along with the morning guy, but Lenny would be gone by noon. But we still had...
You worked with Lenny?
What? But we still had to read the news things periodically up until 6 p.m.
Yeah, I did that too.
But if you had the correct copy, you didn't do it in blue or black ink, you did it in red ink. Because Lenny wasn't there to retype it, nobody's going to retype it, so you would edit the copy, double-spaced copy with big margins. Well, I let my red pen in my shirt.
Oh, you do that once.
And...
no more shirt.
No more, but I went to the dry cleaners, right? And it was summertime, so windows down in the car. I didn't have a car with working air conditioning, but I had a bottle of water in it. So I pulled up to the dry cleaners and I took some water on my hands and I splashed it into my face. And I took my glasses and I kind of went like that. And I went in and it's like, do you know how to get blood out of rayon? It comes off the walls, but I can't get it out of my shirt. And the poor 17-year-old girl.
Oh God!
Behind the counter.
She should have just called the cops.
She
should have called the cops.
This is the day before emergency buttons under counters and stuff. Oh my God! And she didn't believe me, and I'm like, no, I'm kidding. This is just pen.
You're so lucky you're not in jail.
She was cute too. Anyway, the
Flash is going to send us to jail because he is angry again.
So the moral of the story is, because we're going to end this so that we can attend to our dog.
The moral of the story is
buy quality.
Buy quality.
Don't throw good money after bad.
Even these off-the-rack pants, because trust me, Burberry store hanging on the rack. I mean, standard size. But I got such service.
Yeah.
For a pair of pants, and I didn't go in there and spend $1 million. I spent $350. Okay, I bought the scarf.
But yeah, like the suits that I started out with. Hello, London Shop.
Yeah.
We didn't buy. He wasn't taking fabric off a shelf and making me a suit.
No, we bought 2 off-the-rack suits. You happen to be really close to a 44. So you were a 44. You were 44 on top, and your trouser size was.
The point is, it was alterations, not tailoring.
And but
the high quality
they don't
suits.
stock suits.
Right.
That will fall apart if
Right.
you alter them. So the moral of the story is buy quality because quality can be altered
Yes.
and quality can be changed.
Yes.
And you can take a suit with wide lapels and make a suit with small lapels. Or you could add darts, you could make a man's suit into a woman's suit. You can do all these different things
Yep.
over the course of years. And then you don't add to the landfills. And the important part...
You don't support sweatshops.
Yes. The important part in our world right now is don't add to landfills.
Right.
So that's it.
That's it.
We're going to have to go serve our canine master
Yep.
now.
So it's the whole like, subscribe, all
Do the
that
thing.
stuff. And we'll see you next time, I guess.
Bye.
Bye, guys.